Very good. All right, guys, welcome to another session on all things U.S. green cards, merit-based green cards. I'm Dr. Ozi, and we also have Dr. Nancy. Welcome, Dr. Nancy.
Thank you so much for having me here.
All right. So today we're going to talk about something really important. We're going to talk about all about requests for evidence, right? But we always like to give a brief introduction about what this is about because, you know, we always have people who are new, maybe they're hearing about this for the very first time. We welcome you guys, okay? So on this platform, we talk about getting merit-based U.S. green cards, the pathways that exist for that, and we provide resources, we provide services that help people, you know, go all the way from, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, to actually getting their green card. So it's very exciting for us. So we really focus on two pathways. We focus on the EB1 and EB2 NIW, okay? So that's the employment-based first preference and employment-based second preference national interest waiver. These are pathways that allow you to self-petition, which means you don't need an employer. It allows you to be able to get your green card alongside your dependents, so you get everything at the same time. It allows you don't need a sponsor, you know, you can apply from anywhere in the world, and they're merit-based. So a lot of you have already been, you know, you've been doing things that count towards these pathways, and you just don't know about it. So what we do is we give you that information, and that's what we're here for, okay? So today we're going to tackle something really crucial. Sometimes when you apply for these types of petitions, these types of green card applications, you get something called a request for evidence, right? And today we're going to break that down, what that means, and how you can, you know, tackle that and come out on the other side, right? Because we're noting that a lot of people are getting those these days, and so we want to really spend time talking about those, okay? All right, so before we go on, Dr. Nancy, can you just, you know, for those who don't know what this is, what is a request for evidence, and you know, how does that impact your application?
Okay, so I'll dial back just a bit and say you've finished preparing your application, you've submitted it, right?
Okay.
You're expecting one of two things,
Right.
an approval, of course, right?
Oh.
And then in second case scenario, request for evidence. And what that really means is that the officer is not convinced in some aspects of your petition, right? It could be a section, one of the prongs, or right? Or sometimes they say the entire prong, the three prongs. We need more clarification. So what you need to do at that point is provide more evidence. Why are you qualified? Why are you exceptional, right?
Right.
And the way that we look at it and we talk about in our consultation is how can we further simplify and make these things easily digestible so that the officer gets a clear idea of what you're talking about.
Okay. And guys, this is a safe space. So if you have specific questions you want us to answer, this is the time to do that, okay? Put your questions in the chat and we'll be able to answer those questions. I mean, there are a couple of keywords that I want you guys to think about. If you need us to do a one-on-one consultation with you, just type the word consult and you get information in your DM. If you need a guide as to what is EB2, what is EB1, which one do I qualify for, things like that, and you need a free guide, just put the word compare in the chat, okay? And you get that information as well. Okay, so Dr. Nancy was saying something about RFEs. And there are three main reasons why people get RFEs, right? Well, or maybe four, or maybe more, right?
Maybe more.
But the ones that we encounter regularly are, number one, is that the officer is trying to figure out if you're eligible or not, right? So these types of green card categories have eligibility criteria. We can just gloss over that. But they try to figure out, are you eligible, are you not, right? The second thing is they're not really satisfied with the kind of evidence that you presented. That happens sometimes. Sometimes there's something called primary evidence, secondary evidence. I'll give you an example. So if you're trying to say that you are married, for instance, right? Or maybe you're trying to establish your age, for instance, right? The primary evidence for that would be your birth certificate. Something like a baptismal certificate from your church would be secondary evidence. Something like, in my mother's age group, they gave her a certificate that she has delivered 3 weeks later, right? Or maybe in my primary school, I had to do that's secondary evidence. So sometimes the quality of the evidence or the type of evidence you present might not be the type that they're expecting. They might give an argument for that. Other times, we've come to realize that these cases are, you know, they're looked at really fast. You know, I was listening to one of the ex-USCIS officers say that they have 30 minutes to look at each case. And that includes put it in the computer if this person get an RFE or not, or if this person get approved, All that happens in 30 minutes, right? So the ability to distill that information, or the way that it's presented sometimes might not be in the way that they're used to looking at it, right? And so they might just have to issue an RFE because of that, right? So these are some of the reasons why people get RFEs, or it just could be unclear how you qualify. They might just need more information. Or maybe that area that you're talking about is really high level. So let's talk about that. You know, I still spoke to someone last week, and she was talking about something in the medical field. And even though I've spent years in that field, half of that conversation went over my head because she used a lot of acronyms that I don't encounter on a day-to-day basis. We talked a lot about immunology, and I've done immunology. It's not my focus, but I recognize she talked about T cells, B cells, CTLA4, things like that. I understood what she was saying, but because she thought that she was talking to someone that is in the field, right? Just throwing out all these acronyms and all these words, and I was just like following along. But I said to myself, wow, that could be what is happening with some of these cases with USCIS, because we know now that most of these people are not in your field, right? Yeah. So you want to speak to that a little bit about just lay language and how your case is presented?
It's very important that when we write these petitions, we write them, I always say, write to your 12-year-old self, right? Can you understand what you're talking about?
No, I think your high school self.
Your high school self, right? But middle school, just in case. Because, depending on where people get their education from, they tend to write to showcase how intelligent they are. Okay. So now these are people with advanced degrees. So masters, PhD holders, multiple masters. Yeah. They are talking in the layman jargon, right? You know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Engineers are talking in terms and acronyms that someone who has never been to college, right? Because we're hearing this now. Some people may just be military.
Yeah.
You've confused them, and so they're gonna need more evidence. And what they're really telling you is that I don't understand what you're talking about. So
let's give them a tip and a trick that we use, right? We've probably written over, maybe this year alone, maybe 100 petitions. Like, we read a lot of petitions already, right?
Yeah.
One of the tips and the tricks that we use is, I tell everyone on the team, make the points in the first 3 pages. If it's not in the first 3 pages, they're not going to see it, right? Because on average, we write 30 pages for each client, right? And if we now know that the USCIS officers are not going to spend 3 days on your application, they're probably going to spend 30 minutes. If it's not in the first 3 pages, they're probably not going to see it.
Maybe
right?
missed.
So we try to make all the important points in the first 3 pages. Of course, we're going to explain more things in the middle, right? We're going to the last page, the summary page. We talk about, we kind of like encapsulate everything. Here are the requirements. This is how I meet the requirements. And of course, this is how, why the labor certification should be waived in the case of EB2. In the case of EB1, we say, this is how I am internationally known. This is why my stay is going to benefit the US. I plan to keep on in that field. And, we kind of tie it up there, right? So let's talk about the requirements. So let's talk about that. And we talk about the kind of evidence that is required for each of these things, right? So for EB1, they're saying you have to have international acclaim, or you have to show that you meet at least 3 out of 10 of these requirements, right? One of the things that I see that people do wrong is they try to meet as many as possible.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that? Like,
yes. The USCIS wants you to meet 3 of the following. And when you say meet, I think you strongly meet.
Yes.
Right? It's not like you...
Yes.
There's an award within your company that your boss...
Yes. The quality of the evidence.
Yes, it's in quality. So most people who come to us have 4, 5, 6, right? Things. But we hyper-focus on the strongest 3, because we find that if you bring 6 things and 3 are subpar, and you talk about those
3 that are subpar.
Yes. You talk about those 6 things, the officer may hyper-focus on the things that are subpar and tell you, you don't really need this thing.
Yeah.
So if you have 3 things, you're good to go. Just ensure that those 3 things are very strong.
Okay, so let's talk about these 3 things, because people are hearing 3 things, right?
So I hope they can hear us.
You have international acclaim.
I'll be sure they can hear us.
Membership in merit-based professional societies, commanding a high salary, publish material about you, publications that you have written, commercial success, maybe exhibiting your work in places that matter, right? These are some of the things that help you stand out, right? Now, some of you will have multiple of these things, but like Dr. Nancy said, we need to focus on the things that are the strongest, because we've seen cases where people try to say, I have more than 3, in fact, I have 6, right? And then they start to poke holes on those other things.
Yes.
So this is where we talk about the importance of consultation. Before you start writing and gathering evidence and just putting things together, sit with someone who has done this multiple times, right? This is not the time to just try, because again, they don't have all year to look at your stuff. They're going to look at it in a short amount of time. You want to really make sure that you're bringing the most important things to the fore, okay? Another thing is, what kind of evidence, for example, let's talk about awards, because you touched on that. You talked about company awards, right? USCIS is really expecting awards of international repute, right?
Yes.
So if you're saying, in my company, I won Staff of the Year 3 times in a row, I've seen cases where USCIS is like, this appears to be locally within that company. So what kind of awards are we talking about when we talk about those type of awards?
Well, we're talking about national awards. There are some people who work for companies that are located, like, they're everywhere, globally, right? And the people or the criteria for getting the award you have is basically everyone in the company. Let's say 10,000 people in the company, 2,000 applied, and they're located across globe, right? That's a good award to have.
Yeah.
Because you can actually convince USCIS of this is a national, it's a national award. And then evidence for that, of course, is the certificate itself that has your name, the organization, why you got it. But I always say your evidence should always have your name on it.
Right. And sometimes they even open it up to group awards, but let it be in an organization that has international repute. I mean, people in research is low-hanging fruit for them, honestly.
Yes.
I love getting people in research because it's so easy to explain, right? Because people in research, every year we have a chance to shine, right? We go for conferences every year. There are all these outlets for like, send in your abstracts. We're going to do like a competition, or you could win travel awards to this conference, or you could get awards based on international professional societies that you're a member of.
Yes.
Those are low-hanging fruits that you could just take advantage of, right? People in research also, sometimes even if you're not in research, right? Sometimes you will be called upon to be the judge of your peers. So for example, there could be a competition, maybe an abstract competition. I always send people to go do summer camps, like, science projects. They're always looking for judges, and your expertise is always needed, right? So many avenues for you to stand out. But membership in professional societies, for example, there are professionals. I would say all professional societies require dues, because the society has to run on something, right? But however, within those societies, there are subgroups. There are people who are fellows. There are societies that, even though you pay a certain amount to get in, there's still an eligibility criteria. So it's not everyone off the street that can just come in and be a part of it. They may say, you have to have 1 publication, or they may say you have to have a PhD or a master's in this field, right? That's eligibility criteria that, separates certain people, or, kind of cuts off people who don't meet that criteria, right? So those things are merit-based, right? So the quality of your evidence matters. When it comes to professional societies, a lot of people will submit things like, the receipt for their payment. And I'm like, this is not the evidence for it. Evidence would be your name on a certificate that you're part of this. You could include the bylaws of that organization to show that these are the requirements to be part of this. You could even get a letter from someone in that organization, because being part of an organization is not the end all, be all, right? You have to be active, right? Some of these organizations require that you take exams, or you take, do some courses to be part of it. You show things like that to show that it's merit-based. That's the key word, all right? Merit-based is the key word. All right, so many other things. So we talk about high salary. Let's touch on that a little bit, right? Because we have people arguing high salary. We've seen RFEs where you argue high salary and they throw it out. Now, if I make 60,000 in Tennessee and someone in California makes 80,000, the person in California may not be able to argue high salary, right? Because it matters where you are, the location.
It does. It does.
So they will consider your professional level, your years of experience in the location where you live. Right? They'll compare you with your peers. So we usually show 2 to 3 comparisons for salaries. We could use Glassdoor, we could use any of those to show, even the BLS comparison, we could use that to show that I actually command a high salary in this field. If it is 2,000, 3,000, I wouldn't really, you know. And we go with the average in that field, right? To show that you command a high salary. Okay. So for EB1, that's the first requirement. Show us in 3 out of 10 ways, right, that you stand out, right? The second thing is, after you've shown them that you stand out, the second thing is, show us that how your stay will continue to benefit the US. This is where you talk about your entire expertise, right? Things that you've done for EB1, right? So you could talk about, hey, I've contributed to this field, I've done this, you know, these are my achievements, this is how I stand out, you know, this is the mark that I've made in my field. And I plan to continue to stay in this field, right? And of course, you have to tell them in the same letter that you're going to stay in the field, you plan to stay in the field. So everything is kind of futuristic for EB2 NIW, all right? So Dr. Nas, let's talk about EB2 NIW. EB2 NIW, on the other hand, talks about a proposed endeavor, right? Let's talk about that proposed endeavor. What are some of the things that you see with the individuals who have come to us with requests for evidence that you find as a red flag, you know, when it comes to proposed endeavors?
Okay, so your proposed endeavor needs to streamline all your expertise to one problem that you can solve for.
Yes.
And talk about the national importance of that problem, right? Most of the times we see people who the confusion starts from the proposed endeavor.
Exactly.
They've proposed to solve 6 things.
Oh my goodness.
Right? And there's no national initiatives tied to it. The officer understands that you're an expert. You definitely can solve 6 things. But for the purpose of trying to convince someone and teach someone about the importance of the work that you do, if you talk about 6 things, you're going to have follow-up questions, which may lead you to RFE, right? But if you pick one thing, there is a chance, right? Strong, that if they had questions in the beginning, it may be answered in your petition.
Of course.
Right. So the number one takeaway from consultation is a strong proposed endeavor. We remove the fluff. What is it that US urgently needs from you? That you can solve for. That's your number one. That's what you should go for, right? That their funds go into.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of my early years as a student, like in grad school, when you're trying to figure out what your dissertation should be about. And we write a proposal where we're supposed to tell the committee, right? You have a committee. You're supposed to tell them what you're going to do. One of the things that stands out all the time, most of the time, is they tell you this is too ambitious. You're trying to solve too many problems. Because I remember with my proposal, I talked about, I could do this, do that. And these guys have been in the field so long. They know in 4 years. You can't do this in 5 years, right? So that's exactly what it is. When we see people come in and they're talking about the things that they can do, a lot of times it's a little confusing because they want to do so much. And these are high achievers. These are people who have done a lot of things. So one of the things I'll tell people is using, again, people who have done so many things. Because as a professional, you probably have done a lot of things, right?
Of course.
I'll give myself an example. When I was my PhD, I worked in periodontal disease, right? The gum. When I went to my postdoc, I worked with the lungs, right? And then I did a little bit of gut microbiomes work as well. When it comes to what to propose, look at all the different things that you've done. Pick the one that you've done the most in, right? As long as that's relevant to the US.
Yes.
Is this affecting US citizens? Is this affecting the funding things in this area? These are the kind of things you focus on. It doesn't mean that these other things that you've done, you're not going to talk about them. You're going to talk about them as evidence that because I've been successful in other things, it shows that if I propose something in the future, most likely will be successful, right? So that's the route that you should go. Again, you might not know this if you don't do a consultation. You might be thinking, I'm going to talk about all these different things. But you realize that if you start talking about so many things to someone who is not in your field, they get the sense that you're scatterbrained, or maybe you don't really, it will fly right over their heads, right?
Yes.
So you pick that thing that you can talk about, like you've done so much and you can talk about, and then you focus on that. Let me give an example. So we recently were reviewing a petition where someone's talking about gender reassignment, right? And we talked within the team and we're just like, this might not be a good time to focus on that because of the political climate, right? But without that consultation, without reaching out, you might not know that. You might say, I've done so much work in this field. But keep in mind that some topics might be, what's the word, Dr.
Polarizing.
Where this person has to think the same way that you think or have the same beliefs that you have to buy into this, right? So we want to stay away from topics that might be a little polarizing where, there's some certain topics like that. And even if you're going to go with those kind of topics, have at least something that's a backup so that it's not falling. If they don't buy this, then the whole idea is thrown out the window,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay. All right. Let's talk about the quality of recommendation letters, because we see a lot of RFEs mentioning recommendation letters.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts when it comes to recommendation letters? Who should recommend you? And what kind of people should you be looking out for?
Okay. So you're a high achiever, so look for high achievers like yourself, right? That's number one. Then it's not everyone you know that's a high achiever that you reach out to.
Yes.
Look for experts in your field or very related fields who is affected by my proposed endeavor, right? Let's say I'm talking about healthcare inefficiencies. A doctor is a good recommender, right? Then someone in the financial department, health-related finance, who can say, you know what, yeah, there's a lot of health financial inefficiencies in healthcare based on my experience, and then they can back it up with initiatives and data.
Right.
It's key. The people who write your recommendation letters must come off as experts when you introduce them on your letter.
Yes. Most of the time, you're the one who's even going to draft those letters, because if they're really they're very busy. If I ask someone to write me a letter, I was academia for many years. If I ask anybody in academia to write me a letter and I don't give them a draft, it's going to take months, because nobody has time to you like that, right? You give them words on paper for them to edit, right? So that's where we come in as well, is we help you push this process faster. We create those drafts for you. Hey, give it this to your recommender. Based on this, we've created this draft that makes the job easier for them. They're free to edit it. They're free to put things, take things out, but it just makes the work easier. And let's talk about timing for all of this, because this is one of the things that I think holds people back a lot, is the timing, when to do it. Oh, I'm waiting on my H-1B to go through. I'm waiting on this admission to go through. I mean, do you realize that people don't even have to be in the US to apply? So you don't actually have to have that one thing go through for you to apply. You can apply as soon as you're qualified, right? The danger in waiting so long is that policies change, things happen. All the executive orders that we quoted during the past administration were not quoted.
I was just about to go there.
Everything has changed. That are even caught in the process. Because they didn't get their applications out, and now because the administration has changed, they want us to go back and change all these executive orders that we write, right? And we're happy to do it, but I'm just saying, don't wait too long, because what's happening is that there's an influx of people who are qualified, and yours might just be cut in there. You might be that 100 application on the table of someone that has to look at 2 applications an hour, and they're just like, you know what, this is another person talking about obesity again, right? Why are you guys so concerned about what I eat? Okay, no, right? So there's no rhyme or reason to that. So guys, let's act fast, right? You strike when the iron is hot. Some people say you keep striking even when the iron is cold, and it will eventually at some point it'll get hot, right? So let's take some questions so we don't rack up too many questions.
Drawn on, yes.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about this one. Belated happy birthday, Dr. Ozi. I have recently seen a lot of public health profiles that were submitted and approved. Being an Indian citizen, I think EB1 will be my best bet. Any advice on this? Absolutely. Don't even bother with EB2NIW if you're Indian. Except there's another strategy you're trying to get with an approved I-140. But if you're trying to get your green card as an Indian national, I would strongly suggest you go straight to EB1 if you're qualified. If you're not qualified, then I suggest that you begin to look for ways, do that consultation, figure out what do I need to put in place. Because a lot of times people can actually build their cases up and make themselves qualified, right? I would suggest that you do EB1 if you're an Indian national. If you're in public health, even better, because healthcare, you can never go wrong with healthcare. It's easier to explain to people why the US needs something if it's going to affect people's health, right? It's so much easier. In terms of EB1 being qualified, I would say, again, we have to look at your profile. We have to see how you stand out for this process. Do you have awards? Have you written anything? Has anyone interviewed you? And we can talk about how to even build a profile. Let's talk about that.
Oh, yeah.
When I was building my profile, honestly, I waited too long. I waited a whole year. This is even why we started this company anyway. But you don't need to wait a whole year. I waited so long. I was trying to build, and just make it so perfect, right? If you're not part of professional societies that are merit-based, you can't work your way up to that, right? You can look at what the eligibility requirements are, and you figure out how am I going to meet those requirements to be part of this. If nobody has interviewed you about your work, it's time for you to put yourself out there, right? I know people that have tons of scholarships. Their whole life they've been getting scholarships. That makes you stand out. I know people that they've gotten out so many awards. Every time you see a picture of them, they're standing in front of something holding a certificate.
Yes.
That makes you stand out. Judging other people's work, hey, you can apply to journals to be a reviewer, right? That will make you stand out. You can also look at abstracts for conferences, especially if you're a member of a conference or professional society. You can volunteer to do that. You can. There's so many it's summertime, so many summer programs that you can volunteer to actually, stand out as a thought leader in that field. You can start to use social media to your benefit. A lot of you only use social media to post pretty pictures, right, of yourselves. That's good, but you can use social media to your benefit where you start talking about your expertise, right? Because if people talk about you, they put your name in Google, type up your name, then we need to see something related to what you do. A lot of you are maybe residents right now, you're maybe starting out residency, or maybe public health experts. You could be talking about things in your field that affect people right now, right? We're using social media for that because we're even able to argue, show comparable evidence for people that have podcasts. We're able to download their reach. People that go on interviews, maybe YouTube channels, we're able to show, hey, this was watched by X amount of people, so continue to put yourself out there. You can build that case to where when you apply, it looks really, really good for that type of application, right? And of course, it's important how you present yourself. We talked about the fact that some of these people are not in your field. You must talk in lay terms, right? Lay language. Don't write too long. Again, that's another red flag. USCIS officers say they don't like when they see things that are just keep writing and repeating yourself over and over and over again, okay? Keep it short, simple, go straight to the point, all right? I like to include pictures. A picture is worth 1,000 words. If you have pictures that can explain something better, if you're writing a whole page about how 250,000 people died from this disease, or how your work as a financial analyst is going, is there a graph that will tell the story? I think you should put it in there. Those are the kind of things that will help you stand out. Okay.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to jump in, Dr. Ozi, is to give people idea of who we're seeing in these consultations.
Okay.
Right? We are seeing, number one, I'm starting from the bottom tier and up, right? We're seeing students who have just arrived, right? Who want to strategically position themselves to apply upon graduation, right? We're seeing those, and those are the best people because they're doing things while in school intentionally, right? And then we're seeing people who got RFEs and want to re-strategize. They want to go from applying for EB2 and that's approved because of the timeline and the wait to EB1. They want to figure out where do we stand between what requirements, what do we have to do to lift our profile to EB1. So just an idea of who is getting a consultation, what are they coming for beyond just I'm ready to go, right? There are people who, of course, are ready to go. They need to streamline their proposed endeavor and know how strong they are for EB1. But we're also seeing people who are preparing futuristically to apply. It seems as though I lost Dr. Ozi. Let's see, she should be joining back in shortly. Let me see. Make sure that she'll join us here. Give me one. Okay, she'll join us shortly. So the third group of people that we're seeing are a lot of international people who are noticing the change in the climate, the need. The US has a need for independence and resilience when it comes to all our infrastructures. So they're taking advantage and they're coming on for consultations and evaluating their cases. As we know, there are many who are highly qualified. So the takeaway is honestly, if this is a pathway that you're thinking about, the best thing to do is get a consultation or gather your documents, take a stock of what you have, right? Then look at the USCIS requirements. Where do you fall under? Are you qualified to apply? If so, apply as soon as you can, because the gospel of EB1, EB2 is out there. And so many are applying I remember when we started, it used to be you apply and in no time you get a response, right? Now we can feel USCIS is super saturated with applications. Things are taking time, right? So in order to get your application into the pool, as soon as you think of it, get a consultation, put the work to get it together. If you need expert help, we are here. And then apply, right? Let me see if Dr. Ozi is on the horizon. Okay, so just joining shortly. Another thing that we see beyond request for evidence, right, is notice of intent to deny. That's rarely seen, right? That's rarely seen. But the question is, what could lead to that, right? Why would someone get a notice of intent to deny? These are for people who, number one, USCIS is not sure that you qualify to apply to begin with, right? So they're telling you the information you gave to us here, it doesn't fit the criteria. Provide more information, right? So what I usually tell people during consults is that you're really denied at the first go. There's approval, there is request for more evidence, and very rarely there may be notice of intent to deny. With RFEs and notice of intent to deny, you have an opportunity, right? If they're telling you you don't qualify, the things that you're presenting don't add up, you have an opportunity to then go and get evidence that can convince. So basically, you get a chance to reconvince the officers to show them that I do qualify, I meet XYZ criteria, and these are my evidence, right? And then after evaluation, you then get approved or no. With notice of intent to deny, unlike RFEs, which is request for evidence, you don't have much time to respond. If you get an RFE, you have about 60 days to respond. If you get a notice of intent to deny, you have 30 days to respond, right? They're telling you, what we have here, you don't fit the bill. If you fit the bill, you would get the documents immediately and resubmit so that they can address that. All right. Let me see what Dr. Ozi is saying on this end. Aha, she's here.
I am back.
Welcome back.
I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. Technology is like, I'm trying to figure out what to do here. Okay. Let's interact with some of the people here because people are asking questions. I want to make sure that we get some of that done.
Yes,
all right.
Indeed.
And thank you for the birthday wishes, guys. It's my birthday today. I'm really excited, and we're getting older, but we thank God. All right. It's your birthday? Okay. All right. How does number of publications matter? Of course. Publications is one of the ways to show you're exceptional, and it helps you stand out. So if you're going to argue that you have international acclaim because you publish X amount of publications, it's just another way of showing you stand out. If your field requires it, okay? Not every field requires publication. So we've had people who don't have a single publication or a single citation get approved. But if you're going to say, for instance, that you're a researcher, right? And you're, researchers, the only way that we put out our work is by publishing, right? So again, it's not about the number of publications, it's about the quality, the impact of the publications, how many citations you had, and things like that, okay? I have some people here trying to celebrate my birthday with me, so. All right, so let's see. Thank you so much, appreciate it. We'll gather my resources and consult you soon. We absolutely looking forward to talking to you, okay? What did you say about the social media following? What did you say about the social media following of an applicant? Okay, let's talk about that. What we were trying to say was that use the media to your benefit, all right? So it's not so much about your social media following, it's about what you're using your media for. Because some people have been able to show that they're experts just by, hey, I've been on this podcast, I've talked about this area of my expertise, right? And then they're able to even download and show, hey, how many times the podcast episode was downloaded, who was listening, show that demographics. Some people have just one publication, but that has been shared, downloaded X amount of times. They're able to show that, right? They're able to show the impact factor. So I was trying to say that use your social media to your benefit. If it's LinkedIn, there are people on LinkedIn every day posting articles in their field, giving their 2 cents about stuff in their field as subject matter experts, right? You could do that. You could even publish articles, self-published articles, then talking about, areas of your field. We've been able to use those kind of evidence as well. So my point is, there is an aspect of EB-1A where they say what has been what has been published about you, right? Has anybody interviewed you? Have you gone on any newspaper articles? Things like that. And we're able to show, using some of those clippings, that truly I'm an expert in my field, and here's the evidence that I am an expert, right? So start to think about it. When people reach out to you and say, hey, do you want to give this talk at my church, right? If it's in your expertise, hey, say yes. If people reach out to you and say, hey, we're having this gathering, and we're going to be talking about this, it's a Zoom thing, do you want to be part of it, right? Start to say yes to some of those things, because those things will look really good for you. All right, guys, please ask your questions. Feel free, okay, to ask these questions. It's free question and answer. You don't have to pay for this particular thing, okay? All righty. Yeah, so we've answered those questions. Let's talk a little bit about just the application process and how long it's taking, okay? That will even help you, keep you informed about how quickly you need to get on some of these things, okay? A lot of people are scared about immigration, especially with this administration, but you don't have to be. Again, these are merit-based pathways that are still viable for you, right? People are still getting their green cards. I'm a living testimony of this process. I got my green card this way. EB2NIW, now a US citizen, right? So I know that the process works, and I've seen it work countless times for people. One of the things that makes me happy right now is seeing people who started out with me, like bought the toolkits, now getting their green card, now adjusting their status, they've gotten their green cards, looking forward to becoming citizens. That makes me really, really excited. Okay, so let's talk about the process. EB2NIW, unfortunately, is taking a while. People apply, and so let's talk about the application process. 2-stage processes, right? This is I-140 step, where you submit your I-140 application for alien worker alongside your petition, all the supporting evidence, and you wait for an approval. Once that gets approved, or as soon as USCIS receives that application, they give you a priority date. It's like your place in line. It's like a queue system, right? That means that we don't have enough visas for this type of green card. We don't have enough green cards available, but we will give you green card based on first come, first serve, who gets approved or who applies first. Now, the problem with that is that there's a backlog in that USCIS is actually working out cases for people who got approved in 2023, before October 15, 2023. So that everyone who got approved in 2024, 2025 approvals have not gotten to the stage of, getting their green cards. But in the meantime, there's EB-1A, which allows you, the priority is always current for most countries. So the moment you get approved for EB-1A, hey, there's a visa available for you. So we try to do these consultations to ensure that if you're a strong candidate for EB-1A, that you go straight for that. Okay, so that's one of the benefits of a consultation. You can get your green card in as little with EB-1A, 6 months to 6 months. You can get your green card with EB-1A. So I think that that's something that people should know, take advantage of if you really want to get your green card this way. All right, so we have a toolkit that we put together for individuals who may not really need our services for editorial services, but they want to write their RFEs response. They want to put the response together themselves. That toolkit has a template for you. It has template recommendation letters. It tells you how to organize your application. If that is you and you've got an RFE, you want to respond yourself, just type in the words RFE and we'll send you that information as well. All right, someone is asking how many okay, lots of questions. Let's see. Does the university department newsletter count? Yes, I think so. I mean,
think so.
not everyone that gets on the university newsletter. I remember getting on the university newsletter once we did this article that was getting a lot of traction. And so the university sent down a team to come interview us, everyone in our lab, right? And we got on the university newsletter. It was a big deal, right?
Yeah, that's nice.
It does matter, especially if you're in a university, a reputable university, and you were put in there for some work that you did. I think it does count. Yeah, you must, put all that evidence as well.
Together.
How many LORs do you need? I'll let Dr. Nancy handle that one.
Okay, we usually recommend 3 to 6, right? LORs go into USCIS. Yeah. The strongest people that you have in your network, I think that cuts it, because remember, these are experts co-signing on the importance of the thing that you're proposing to solve for, right? But USCIS will not give you the approval based on just that alone. So some people come and they have 10 people that they must add. There is a point where you get to, and it's now a distraction.
Yeah, they're repeating each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Streamline.
There's only so much they can say about you.
Yes.
And your work.
And we've seen people get approved with 2.
I've even seen someone get approved with 0 LORs.
Yeah. Even though that's a red flag.
Was so rich, he didn't even need any LOR. It's like he was on a plane and he didn't even taxi. He just like took off, right? It's not about the number of letters, it's about the quality of the letters, who's writing, right? So what we see is that they value letters that come from people outside your immediate circle. It holds more relevance.
Yes.
So they're called independent letters. So it's thought that if people that know you intimately write letters for you, that it's going to be biased, and most times it is, right?
It is.
Yeah. So you want to get people that will say, I haven't directly worked with her, but because I am an expert in this field, I know the impact of what she's talking about. Let's give an example. So let's say you're working in a field, maybe you're a doctor, and it's maternal mortality you want to propose for your application. And you've done some work with a group of researchers. You've worked with every single person on that team, and they're all saying, oh yeah, she's a good worker, blah, 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 blah. Well, that's all well and good, but these people are too close to you. They could just like you because you're friendly, right? Try and get a letter from someone who's removed from that, who is also an expert in the field, maybe an OBGYN, but that doesn't work directly with your team, who can say, hey, I haven't worked with her, but I'm an expert in this field. I've been 10 years in this field. And based on my expertise, what she's talking about makes sense. A lot of times you may not know those people directly, or you may know them directly, but if you don't, you can actually leverage a network to say, hey, I have this mentor who can make this introduction for me, right? And then get the right people to write these letters for me. So I wouldn't advocate for paying people to write recommendation letters for you, because that's bias. You're not supposed to do that. But look for people who, it's the quality of the letters. So I love 6 is my magic number when it comes to letters. Anything outside 6, I feel like it's a repetition. We're going to be repeating each other, right? So I like 6. 4 to 6 for me is great. But I've also seen people with 0 letters get approved, but I don't advocate for that. I always say an expert needs to say that what you're doing makes sense. Alrighty. Does a place of work or GA social media count? Am I too old, or what does GA mean? You guys, help me out here.
In the research world, I'm thinking grad assistant, but who knows?
Okay, are there things that you definitely must not do when responding to an RFE? I would say don't be salty. A lot of times, some of the things they're asking you for, you already have given them.
Yes, it's a repetition.
I've seen an RFE that questioned every single thing. And all these things they questioned, we submitted this the first time. They said, oh, tell us that you should know evidence that you have the advanced degree. This guy included his transcripts, information, everything was there, right? Oh, show us evidence that you have, your letters make no sense. Right? Everything was questioned. And it tells me sometimes that they didn't even really read this thing, right? So I would say, number 1, don't be salty. I always start letters by saying, hey, thank you for the opportunity to respond to this. I may not have clearly explained this in the beginning. Thank you for this, another chance to be able to. I always take ownership of that, because this is someone that has probably told their boss, I don't think this person is qualified. Right? And when you now come back and say, oh, in the first application, by the way, I put it there, but you may have missed it. Oh yeah, I don't do that in RFE. Then I also have something that I do is earlier on, I always talk about how I have addressed each query of the RFE. I put that up, earlier on. When it comes to RFEs, I don't give them back too much of the evidence that was previously submitted, right? I try to avoid that, because they've seen it. They've seen most of that stuff. So I try to introduce new evidence, but not necessarily new things that were done after the date of approval of submission. They don't want to see that. They want to see that the day you applied, you were qualified. So bringing all these new things sometimes doesn't really work, right? I try not to make it too long. So don't make it too long, the responses. You don't want to make that too long. RFE must have new evidence. It could be new articles you're citing. It could be new letters of recommendation. Something has to be new there. You just can't just say, oh, I gave you everything, I'm just going to say that I did that, again. Right? You have to be seen to be adding something new. Do you have any other things that you say we should include with RFEs? We rewrite the whole thing when it comes to RFEs.
We do rewrite the whole thing.
The magic is we write it in lay terms. Further I don't want to say dumbing it down,
Simplify.
but simplifying is the right
Yes.
word. Yes.
Fine.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You
And
have to
don't
hold
talk
our
about
breath and
things.
do this.
Don't talk about things they didn't ask you for. Like,
Exactly.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't go digging into so that you can pull that you're exceptional. No, just answer the questions they asked you thoroughly, and then
Yes.
leave it at that. Yeah.
Yeah. And in some instances, I've tried this and I've been successful.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when people have written their petitions and they didn't write it through us and they've
Mm-hmm.
come for RFE support, sometimes I may tweak the proposal endeavor at that point
Oh
because
yeah.
I've
Yes.
seen that the endeavor is just it's too broad,
Broad.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's dicey to do that, but I don't really change it so much that it's now a totally new thing.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I further streamline it to
Yes.
make it, oh,
That's
maybe it
key.
was too, I didn't explain this well before. I may
Mm-hmm.
change the language a little bit just to make that endeavor a little more understandable. Okay. It has to be
Yes.
done because if not, we're just like, we've still not explained to them how you're qualified. We must
Yes.
do
Which
that.
is
Okay.
yeah, definitely. Let's see, what's the next question? Dr. Ozi, have you frozen again? Let me read the question and maybe she'll join us. Can we reuse same LORs for EB2 NIW and EB-1A applications? How soon can we start requesting the letters for our field experts before we apply? All right, so I'm going to answer the last one first and then work my way back up. So as soon as you decide that you want to apply, reach out to your recommenders. These letters are good for a year, right? And life happens. Your recommenders things may happen. They may say yes and then get too busy. So as soon as you decide that you're going to be applying for EB1, EB2, reach out to your recommenders. You are going to need their CV because you're going to be drafting the letters, right? So you're going to be needing their CV, or you go to LinkedIn. If their profile there is comprehensive, if it's up to date, you can use that information to draft the recommendation letters. And people always ask me, how do I reach out to these people, right? I like when you reach out to people and we see that it works best if you already know your proposed endeavor, right? So you reach out to them and you now say, I'm applying for merit-based green card. This is what I'm proposing to solve for. Or if it's EB1, these are the areas of expertise, my areas of expertise. I would like for you to recommend me and say the magic word. I will bring you a draft. You can edit and sign. 99.7% of the time, most people that we work with, their recommenders say yes, right? And when we give them the draft, the turnaround time is fast. All right, so now can we reuse same LORs for EB2 and EB1? The quick answer is yes, right? But if you know you're going to be applying for both, there's language that differs a little bit between those two. The person you're recommending must always say, I support your petition for EB2 or EB1. So when we talk about letters for EB1, we dwell on your extraordinary abilities, right? The language is streamlined to why you're extraordinary, impact that you've had, the national importance. When we talk about EB2, we hone in on labor certification, why that should be waived for you, national importance, and what else? Why are you qualified, right? And so there's a little bit of difference in the language. It can be the same recommenders, but if you know you're going to go through both pathways, it's best to draft them in parallel, making sure the language for EB1 says, this is why I'm extraordinary. This is why I plan to continue in this sector while in the US. This is the influence I'm going to have continuously, right? And the language in EB2 is centered around your proposed endeavor, right? You're talking about one problem there, while in EB1, you're talking about different sectors that you impact. So there's a little bit of difference in language. When we draft them for people who apply for both pathways in parallel, we actually, let's say you have 6 recommenders, we actually draft 12 letters, right? So that the language is covered appropriately. All right, let's see if they can hear me, and let's see. Are there more questions? Dr. Ozi has arrived again.
Technology is dealing
Oh
with
my
these things.
God.
Alrighty.
Okay, so I did answer this question. I don't know if you heard me or you have more
I
things
did
to add.
hear,
And I
I
can
did hear
follow
some
up.
of it. I think
Okay,
that
good.
that's a great question because you don't want to go disturbing your recommenders every
Twice.
2 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we've done in the past that has been very successful with just using the same recommenders for both processes is we have been careful with the language. So instead of saying letter of recommendation or letter of support for EB2 NIW, we'll say letter of support for the merit-based USCIS permanent residency to the employment-based, process, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we will not be specific about either EB1 or EB2, but we'll say the employment-based, right? And so we're able
Mm-hmm.
to, and then we'll have this other recommended I was talked to on balance. I will talk about waiving labor certification.
Yes,
So
yes, very
that one
important. Cover
person will
that
be
one.
used for EB2 and
EB2.
NIW specifically, while the other recommenders, because both processes have some overlap. We
They
talk
do.
about exceptional ability.
Mm-hmm.
Even so with EB2, there's a proposed endeavor. You have to be careful now,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. That's the
In
thing.
EB1, there's no proposed endeavor.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that we get around it is there's an aspect of EB1 that talks about how your expertise will benefit the US,
Yes.
right? We in letters that mirror EB1 and EB2, we will talk about that in terms of the national importance of that endeavor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little technical, but that's what we really do. If you want just one of those people that, hey, you can present two letters to people, hey, go ahead and write two separate letters. But for us, what we do is we will talk about the national importance of your expertise to the US for both letters. And then we'll have a separate letter that really talks about why labor certification must be waived.
Wait.
That's really how we've done it in the past. And we've been successful with that. So, yeah. All right, guys, let's see. Are we answering people's questions? Thank you so much for being patient with me. Today is kicking my butt with the
Tiring.
technology. All right. Let's see. Okay, graduate assistantships. I thought about that for a second.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's what I thought.
alrighty, let's see. So I don't know how many questions have you
There's a
answered
question
here?
here on the screen.
Oh, thank you.
Yes,
Oh
there's
my
a question on the
goodness.
screen, yeah.
Because I'm trying to use my other phone.
No,
Okay.
no.
Based on the latest visa bulletin, my case is now current. Yay!
Yay,
However, my status
congratulations.
shows at NVC on
National
what's
Visa
CAE?
Center.
You get us started now. Do I need to contact the NVC and ask for when they'll forward for consular? Oh, you're doing consular processing. Okay. So, yes. So the way that it works with consular processing is that now, for those who don't know, you can either do consular processing or you can adjust your status. If you're in the US, you adjust from whatever status you are to the green card. If you're outside the US, the National Visa Center will contact you once it's time for you to do the the scheduling, right? So they have a platform where they look at the process like of how things are moving along, and you just have to pay attention to that because you'll be notified at each stage what needs to happen next, right? Your visa, your appointments, and things like that. So you just have to follow the progress of that case on your portal. I think that's what's going to
Yeah, that's the
happen. Yeah.
photo.
And then if things are taking too long, hey, they're not reaching back to you. Your priority date is current. Your priority date is current in June. You can also chat with them. You can never go wrong with chatting with USCIS about things. That always helps. Alrighty. Is there a way we can get the next question on the screen so that we can? Alrighty.
Yes.
Okay. What kind of transcript evidence is needed for a video media coverage? Can one use Q, a self-generated transcript, or AI-generated transcript? Okay, when I talked about transcript, I was talking about in terms of degrees.
Academics.
Right? So let's get that clearly. Unfortunately, you can't send USCIS any videos. It has to be completely paper-based. So now, when you're saying that you've done some media coverage, video media coverage, you just have to show them, for instance, if you have, I know what Q is. If you have, you can use that to show like the metrics, to show the downloads and things like that. You can simply go on that YouTube. If it's a YouTube page, you can show them number of people watching, number of downloads and things like that. We've done that in the past. But yeah, those are some of the things that you can use to show that. And then you can also have whoever invited you also write a letter to that effect to talk about the relevance of that platform. I think that would be beneficial as well. Yeah. Okay, do you have more questions? Is it acceptable to structure your EB2 NIW petition to cover both ADP and EA criteria, exceptional ability and advanced degree, okay, professional, so that USCIS can evaluate both categories and make a decision based? No, I wouldn't advocate for that. No, I wouldn't.
No.
If you're going to argue, so here's the thing though, guys. If you're going to argue that you qualify on the basis of an advanced degree, it doesn't mean that you're not still going to talk about your exceptional ability.
Exceptional, yeah.
Because everybody that so you be clear in the beginning that I'm arguing on the basis of advanced degree.
Yes.
You've met that requirement. Now, when it comes to showing how well you're positioned to advance the proposed endeavor, guess how you're going to show how well you're positioned? It's through your exceptional skills, right? The things that make you stand out are the things that make you exceptional enough to advance the endeavor. So you still talk about those things, right? So don't suggest both of them. No, it's either or. We push exceptional ability sometimes when people have gotten degrees in areas that are different from what they're proposing, right? So we make it clear that we're not proposing on the basis of exception or of advanced degree. Because sometimes when you propose something that you don't have a degree in, they point that out. They say you don't have a degree in this thing, right? So we make it clear for those people that we're applying on the basis of exceptional ability, right? For those people. But for those who apply on the basis of advanced degree, remember, you're not going to get this green card solely because you have that degree. We are going to use everything that makes you stand out in the section that talks about you being well positioned to advance that endeavor. I'm well positioned because I have this award, I stand out, I have this degree, I have this recommended saying that I've excelled in this field. I'm a member of merit-based professional societies, I've judged the work of my peers, right? These are exceptional things, right? But they are the things that make you sure that you stand out, right? So please don't do both. Be clear about which one of them. If not, you get an RFE for that, most likely. All right. More questions? Okay, how does the graduate assistant's place of assignment social media page count in this petition? Especially if they post students that have done exceptional stuff. This is what we call secondary evidence, not really the main thing, right? This is not what you're going to lead with, when it comes to applying for these types of green card applications. However, this is supporting evidence, right? So in order to say that you really stand out, you say, hey, this is the main evidence. And by the way, right, I've been recognized for my achievements, my place of work, blah, 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 and then you show things like this. This is not the main meal. This is like the accompaniment, okay, for the other things. But yeah, by all means, I think you should show it, but it's just in the context of how you put it forward. These kind of evidence would not be put on the first page, but it would definitely be put alongside the main course, if that makes sense. All right. All righty. So I hope we're making sense to you guys. What are the job opportunities in the US in the field of public health? This one is open-ended. Dr. Darcy, over to you.
You had something on the screen, but say that again.
Okay, sorry, I was trying to read somebody's question here. The person said, what are the job opportunities in the US in the field of public health?
In the field of, there is a myriad, vast opportunity,
It's
right?
so
It depends.
It just depends. Where do you want to work?
Yes.
Are you going to work in academia? There's so much epidemiologists. There's a huge need for public health professionals across board. You could work in private sector. You could work in academia. You could do research. You could work for the state, right? They have a lot of disease monitoring.
Yes, there's
groups,
so many things.
Department of Public Health, things like that. I think there are so many places you could work depending on your interest.
Yeah, you have to research.
You have to research and
just
figure out
of our EB2, EB1, O-1 pathway into career development.
Which
we have not launched yet.
So let me give you guys a tip. I don't know which Canada does this, because I've heard that Canada will probably place you. In the US, they give you a green card. They don't really care about.
You don't care where you have to find the job.
What you're going to do with your career, right?
Yes.
And that's something that I realized when I got my green card is I still have to figure out my career.
Yes.
I still have to figure out, you know what I mean? Like, nobody cares about you told them that you have all these amazing skills that could get you a job, right? And they've given you the green card. Now go get the job. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's still your due diligence. You have to go out there. Now, but there are so many places that you could work, like we've talked about, right? Depending on your interest and depending on, you could go to academia, you could do research, right? You could work in hospitals, right? Just depending on your background. You could work for the states. depending on, and then you
Health.
could, so many places, you could work for, like the World Health Organization, different organizations like that. So public health is very valuable. It's a good field to be in. That's something that you should know. Oh, look at comments we love.
Yes.
Dr. Ozi and Dr. will guide you through what you're struggling with. Yes, absolutely.
Yes,
Thank you so much for that. We really appreciate that.
Appreciate that.
Must be someone from our consultations.
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's go. Any more questions? All right. I think we kind of answered most of them. Oh no, there are a lot more here. Okay, let's go. Maybe let me read this. Okay, I have 2 to 3 peer-reviewed publications submitted or accepted by fall 2025. I'll have. Okay.
I'll have.
Okay. All right, let me go again, guys. I'll have 2 to 3 peer-reviewed publications submitted or accepted by fall 2025. Will that be sufficient to meet the exceptional ability standard if I don't yet hold a PhD? First and foremost, I want to applaud you because nobody knows that they will have 3 publications accepted by fall. This is something that you must be really good to know that. A lot of times when we submit papers, they go through multiple peer reviews. And so, so if you do have these 3 publications, I doubt that they will have citations by that time. It usually takes a while for people to start citing your work. But again, it depends on how your petition is crafted, right? A lot of times, like I said, we've worked with people who don't have PhDs, who have 0 publications, right? It's all about how is your petition written, right? And how are you able to present yourself as someone who's a thought expert or a leader in your field, right? A lot of times people have not published, but they've gone to so many conferences, they've presented their work, we're able to use that, right? So again, remember that publication is 1 out of several. You may be able to meet that 1, but how about the rest? So I would highly suggest that you do a consultation because I don't know, just reading this, I don't really know how much you've done in other things, right? How much or how strong the other piece of evidence are. But I feel like if you're going to have these publications, that's 1 out of, you know what I mean? You may need to have more.
And then
can I file on the EB2 category using my master's in advanced teaching plus my years of professional and academic experience? Okay, yeah. Absolutely, yeah, you can. You don't need a PhD. I hope you guys understand.
Yeah.
That's one of the myths about this process is that you need a PhD. No, you don't need a PhD to apply. So again, get clarity with a consultation because sometimes people are qualified now. They don't need to have a PhD and MD to apply, but we look at everything they've done, right? If that PhD is going to add to your petition, maybe with that PhD you're going to have so much more, then yeah. But if not, I don't suggest you wait. If you're qualified with your master's, definitely go for it, right? Yeah. Okay, if you'd like to schedule a consultation, please just type in the word consult. You get that information in your direct messages right now, okay? All right, I have master's degree. Yes, master's degree definitely qualifies. What if having just 2 publications? Okay, 1 first author, another one in national magazine in a niche that the person is known for in that discipline. Yes, that stands out. You can actually apply with that, okay? Yeah. Okay, also, do you have to wait till it's published? Is abstract enough? Again, publication is 1 out of several ways to show you stand out, okay? Like I said, people have applied with 0 publications are gotten approved. Now, if you've gone to several, we also call those abstract submissions, we treat them like publications, especially because they go in the conference proceedings, right? And sometimes people will even cite those. So we count those things as well, right? If you go on your Google Scholar page or your Google Scholar page, you'll see that some of your abstracts that were sent to, they were presented at meetings have also received some kind of scoring there, right? So we are able to really talk about those things as well. And then speaking at meetings also puts you on a national stage, right? So we're able to talk about those things. It just really depends on really the breadth of your work. Outside of these speaking engagements, what else have you done? That will really tell us if you're really an EB2 person or if you're more of an EB1 person, okay? All right, Dr. Nancy, here's one for you. Does an article on Wall Street Journal count?
It does count, right? But what are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's something that can be highlighted, but it's not the
Yes.
only thing. It's one of
Yes.
3 things that you need to even open the door, right?
Yes.
And I
Yes.
noticed that a lot of people are asking about their masters and their PhD. Remember, advanced degree is bachelor's plus 5 years of experience. So if you have your
Yes.
bachelor's and 5 years of working experience in
In
that
that
field,
field, right?
yes, then don't be discouraged that you're qualified to apply,
Yes.
so that
And
you
just think
don't.
about it this way. There's a requirement for advanced degree. This is what the requirement is.
Mm-hmm.
You've met that requirement, move on to the next thing, right?
Yes.
Advanced degree is advanced degree. You've met the requirement, let's move on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
We typically like to take people with at least a master's because of how competitive this process is.
Mm-hmm.
The people that we've worked with who had only a bachelor's had a ton of years of experience.
Yes.
And they were able to show that with their employment verification letters to show they had those years of experience. Some of them even had service awards to show they have worked for like 10 years, right? So if you have a bachelor's only, we would like to see that you have some years of work experience, okay, to back that up. If you have a master's or a PhD, hey, we move straight to showing other things. All right, someone is saying they have one paper in IEEE and 6 citations. Yes, come on board. Let's talk about that, okay? Just send the word consult and we'll be able to send you that link. He has a master's degree in computer science from a Canadian university and 3 years experience as a data engineer. Yes, definitely come on board and let's talk about that. I think you have something strong there. All right, what balance of academia versus government industry letters should I target? Again, I like 4 to 6 letters. If you're going to do 4 letters, I would say do 2 independent and 2 dependent. Of course, someone has to say that you're qualified for this based on the work that you've already done. So
Yes.
we're not going to discount that. But we still need to get people. I like half and half. I like to get people who say, at least one person who's saying, I'm an independent person. I'm not related to her. I haven't worked with her. But because I'm an expert in this field, I was approached to evaluate this petition on this proposal, right? So I would definitely say at least have one independent recommender. But if you're doing 4 letters and you can get 2 and 2, that's absolutely okay. Okay. Alrighty. All right. So we talked about our toolkit that will help you if you want to do this yourself. Let's talk about our services before we hop off. Okay. We have something for everyone. We have, because I started out as a student in the US, I know how the climate is. I know how it's hard as a student to find money to do anything, right? So I decided to make a toolkit. One of the first things that we did, we created a toolkit. It shows you samples of how it's done, the layout. This is how people have put together petitions. All I have to do is mirror. When they're talking about their proposed endeavor, I talk about my proposed endeavor. When I talk about how they're qualified, I talk about how I am qualified, right? It just shows you how it's done. When they're talking about recommendation letters, this is the template for how to write these letters. We have a toolkit for EB2NIW if you want to do EB1. The next thing is, I don't want to do it myself, but I want you guys to help me draft the documents. We have services for that as well. I don't want to have you guys draft it. I want you guys to review it after I write it. We have services as well. We have end-to-end services that cover everything. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in our services, unfortunately or fortunately, we require a consultation to take people on. It's absolutely necessary. We don't just let people go on our website and purchase a service without talking to you first. It doesn't really help anyone, okay? So we want to have that conversation with you, make sure that you're actually qualified for this before we move forward. We want to make sure that we both agree on what your endeavor is going to be.
Yes.
We want to make sure that you're really clear about who is going to give you these letters. We want to make sure that you're giving us the right information to draft the letters, that we are giving you the letters in a timely fashion where you can send that over to your recommenders. We want to make sure that all of these things are checking out, and it only happens in the context of a consultation, right? When you get in that consultation, our consultant is going to break down any other thing that you need to know, answer any other questions that you have. It's a virtual session. It happens online. So you can log in. We've had consultants, or we've had meetings with people across the globe, right? You can, as long as you have internet connection, hey, we're here for you. All right. So these are the services that we have. If you're open to having that consultation, just type in the word consult and we'll send you the information that you need. All right. All right. Let's see. Any more questions? Some people are coming with more questions. Wow. All right. Let's see if we can answer a few more, Dr. Nancy.
Okay.
Someone has a bachelor's degree in computing and information technology, 4 years experience and counting. Okay. Wonderful. What is the question here? Okay, I'm guessing they're asking if they're qualified. Bachelor's degree and 4 years. You must have at least 5 years of work
5
experience.
years.
You have
So
only
just,
bachelor's degree, okay? So
but
is there any other?
Dr. Uzi, 4 years and counted means 4 years and some months. If you're interested in applying,
Yeah.
prepare the documents now.
Yeah.
As if you have the 5 years and submit when you've hit the 5 years.
Yeah, exactly.
That way
I mean,
you're not
it's the
starting.
process too.
Yes,
Yes,
it's a tedious
absolutely.
process.
And let me even talk about the work experience, because I'm one of those people who never had work experience, right? I kind of like went from school to school to school. So I did my bachelor's, I went straight to my PhD, and then did a postdoc, and I applied during my postdoc. Honestly, when I applied, I had 2 years of experience. I was able to use all that time in the lab, pull all those hours, and say I was a research assistant. All these count, right? So it's going to be very important for you to look at your profile and say, hey, are there things that I did that could count towards this work experience? You could pull that, right? So again, consultation is really important because it really help you give you clarity as to what counts. And then if you're in 4 and counting, it tells me it's time to put together an application. You might be able to turn in that application soon. Does a client who I've provided a solution for count as an independent recommender? No, that's not independent, right? That person can attest to your expertise.
Yes.
However, they serve a different purpose, but it's not necessarily independent. Independent means you haven't worked with them, but you based on their expertise. So definitely a thought leader in your field. So think of someone who is ahead of you in terms of career-wise, right? That's someone who can be an independent person. Someone is on TN visa. Can I apply for EB1 from outside the US while my wife still lives in Canada and wait for visa? Yeah, people on TN visas, the strategy they usually use is to go through the consular processing route. So they would apply for an EB1 and then opt for consular processing because there's some argument about your intentions with the TN visa, right? What it allows you to do. So most of them will complete the process through consular processing, where when their priority date is current, or with EB1, your priority date is current anyway. Once you get approved with the I-140, then you opt to complete the process through consular processing. Most likely will fly out of the country and have that interview and then come back in with your approval. All right. Hi, Vina. I remember Vina. Do I need a consult for a form I-485? Absolutely, Vina. Absolutely. You would absolutely need a consult. Actually, we have a separate package for adjustment of status. It depends. If you got a package with us that included adjustment of status initially, then yes, come on down. But if you look at your contract and you see that what you got with us was just for the I-140 step, then you would need to reach out to us for that, okay? Because it takes some good time to put that together. Okay, Dr. Nasi, I have one for you. What time is it? It's 3 o'clock. What time did we begin? We've done a little over an hour.
An hour change,
Okay. All right. How do you address the challenge of proposed endeavor being easier for researchers, scientists, AI, as compared to other fields? Good question. Very good question.
Excellent question.
Very good question. I love that.
I think that based on years of consultations, right, we look at them all the same. Really, the question at hand is, what is it in your sector that you can solve for? What is the US talking about in your sector? Once you go from that lens, it's easy to come up with something.
Right? Yeah, and could you even tell us your field so that we could even be more specific with this, right? Yes, I have to acknowledge that there are some fields that is so much easier. We talked about that. Healthcare, when it has to do with life or death, it's easier to explain things like that and why it is relevant. But we've seen working with people across board. We've worked with lawyers. We've worked with IT folk. We've worked with people in finance. We've worked with people in the engineering field. Worked in different fields. What is consistent across board is showing that there is some national importance of your endeavor to the US. Once you can argue that your endeavor is nationally important, then that becomes relevant for the US. Remember, not everyone is a scientist. Not everyone is in the field, right? So once you're able to pull that national importance, I think that that's the key to it all. Finding something that is nationally important, not just something that is important in Texas, right? You want to propose something that cuts across board as relevant, all right? I wish he would just put what his national importance is so that we could, or what his field is. But let's touch on something before we go. The use of AI, right? Everyone is on ChatGPT these days, right? Let's talk about the use of AI to draft petitions or even come up with endeavors. What is your opinion about people who just go in and just ask ChatGPT to give them ideas as to things they can propose for EB2? What we're seeing is that USCIS is not using AI. Remember that you're not talking to a machine. At the end of the day, a human is going to evaluate your work. But just in terms of coming up with endeavors, what are you seeing when it comes to the use of AI to come up with these endeavors?
There are those proposed endeavors that we see that have 10 ideas of the things that you can solve for.
Yeah.
I think that you can use AI as a guide, meaning it'll tell you
Yes.
things happening in your field. Then you now say, okay, I have a lot of experience in this particular thing. Let me craft my proposed endeavor around this thing. But many people who use it just take exactly what it's telling them and put it there. And now, how do you write and how do you convince someone? Once you've started this way, you then use AI to write the whole thing, and it's really confusion that you have put together.
Yeah. I can identify AI as soon as I see it, because I've read a ton of petitions, right? So I can identify it. If you're going to use AI, there's something called responsible use of AI. It's very important.
Yes.
AI will give you whatever answer you're looking for.
Yes.
Anything you're leaning towards, depending on how you ask the question, it will give you that answer for that, right? So the danger with it is that sometimes it gives you an idea that you cannot execute. Let's just be honest. With your expertise, you cannot do this thing in 1 year, right? So the fact that a human being is going to evaluate this stuff, be careful with the use of AI. Use AI, but like Dr. said, use it responsibly as a guide, right? And then get a human being to evaluate. Because when I listened to a session by a former USCIS officer, she was saying that they still don't use AI to evaluate cases. There's talk about using it to look at the evidence, but they don't use it for case evaluations just yet, right? So the fact that you're going to talk to somebody who's human, the fact that you're going to talk to someone who's not in your field, the fact that you're going to talk to someone who may not have the same degree or educational attainment as you do, right? We know these things now. You have to make sure you humanize your work, okay? And don't go to AI on them, all right? Okay. He's in data engineering. Come on down. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, that's
awesome. All right. I'm working with a French company in America as a task consultant. I studied in France, currently on F1. I want to apply for EB1. Am I going to be a good candidate? Not enough information here. Again.
Need a
Your
consultation.
field is, we had someone who got approved as an accountant. She had a lot of stuff, CPA and all that kind of stuff. But it's not the norm. So you'd have to really show that you are exceptional and you stand out in that field to do EB1. All right, to add to the question on endeavors, what if that industry is library and archives? Library and archives. Wow, we've not had that one yet.
Because
but
we have
again,
to challenges. We need to see. It's a spin.
What
It's
is
library and archives. It has to, and it has to go into education system.
Yes,
and maybe.
Sometimes we take a cue from what they did, like their dissertation.
Yes.
When they were in school, because you're solving a problem a lot of times with your dissertation, right? So, like, what about library and archives? History is very important. Preservation of history is really important. So it depends on. I mean, there's a cultural aspect of it. What are you using? What are you doing? What problem would you be solving? Think about it that way. What problem
that needs to be urgently solved in the US?
Yes,
urgently solved. Yeah.
And is it going to affect? Listen to this. Is it going to affect the economy, the healthcare, the culture of the US? What is it? What is it affecting, and what is it going to do? Is it going to boost tourism? What is it that your expertise is going to do?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to round up because once we get to 2:30, I want us to hop off. Yeah. Again, it's been a pleasure being here talking to you guys. We want to keep coming and giving you all this information. Don't be in despair about the immigration news right now. Know that there are still merit-based pathways that are viable for you, especially people who have done a lot in their fields. One of the takeaways I'm going to say is don't waste time, right? Don't wait till this one happens or wait till that one happens or wait. Get on it as soon as possible. So certain keywords we have for you. If you need a consultation, type in the word consult. If you need a free guide, what are the requirements for EB1, EB2? Type in the word compare, you'll get a free guide. Now, if you need the guide for the RFE support, then type in RFE. You get that information as well. All right, last question. Okay, Yalda, I think that's, there's another one. Okay, Dr. Nancy, here's yours.
Can I apply for EB1 or EB2 while having an open H-1B application from inside USA waiting for approval?
Of course.
Well, yes, everything goes in parallel. So you can apply for both of them if you want. It's, do you qualify? As long as you qualify, yes, you can apply.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's answer is yes. All right. A product manager worked on fintech and logistics. I want to apply for EB2. How can you help? We can help you with a consultation. We can streamline your endeavor. We can help you put the application together. Literally help from end to end with the process.
Yes.
So we're here for you. Okay. All right. I want to thank you guys for taking out the time. I know it's been over an hour, and also keeping up with a little bit of our glitches that we had today. I thank you for joining us. We're looking forward to helping you out. I mean, we've helped a ton of people get their green cards. I'm really excited because people are completing the process. Some of our people are graduating now to starting to apply for citizenship. I'm really excited. I wish you guys the very best.
Yes.
Just know that we're here for you. Don't waste time. If you need that consultation, get it quickly. Invest in yourself, okay? That's the best that you can do. All right. Any last words, Dr. Nancy?
No, it's been amazing answering questions and talking a little bit about something that we do every day behind the scenes. Till next time.
All right. Thank you so much for joining. And